Hello. Today's video is going to be about Disney's Alice in Wonderland, the 1951 movie. Came out in 1951. In reality, the story of Alice in Wonderland had actually kind of been around at Disney even before Disney production or Disney Studios became Disney Studios. One of the companies that Walt had worked for before he founded Disney was Laugh-O-Gram Studio in Kansas City. I don't think that they're around anymore. They were just this company that did lots of different little animated things that would be like before movies or in between movies and stuff like that at movie houses and such. And one of the different series that he had come up with was kind of an Alice's Wonderland series. And it was this live action girl inside of an animated world. So kind of think a lot like, like Mary Poppins when they get dropped into the Jolly Holiday sequence, except a lot more, just black and white stuff. I think Walt appeared in several of them as well because he's like talking to the girl and like showing her like, well, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do this, and then you're gonna have like all these different things around you, and we're gonna have you interact with this different stuff, and then we're gonna draw in all these other things, dogs and everything like that. Dogs, trees, flowers, all this other stuff to give you stuff to interact with, so it doesn't look like you're crazy. That would just feel like a weird day when you come home from work. What did you do today, sweetie? Well, Mr. Disney had me run around on like a whiteboard screen type thing and make me pretend that there was like different animals or things chasing me or different things like that. And, and then, however many weeks later or whatever, you end up seeing the thing and it's like, so that's what he was imagining running around me. Okay. It was, a way of, kind of doing, and like Alice in Wonderland is of course based on the books, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. History of those books itself. He was kind of babysitting, I guess babysitting would be the best way of putting it nowadays. Two or three daughters of like one of the professors at the school that he went to, and he made up these different stories to tell them, and a lot of them ended up being in Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass later on when he wrote them. Given the fact of when he wrote the books in like the the 1800s, it's like, okay, sure. So there's a lot of fun stuff there, and like there's been so many iterations of the Alice in Wonderland movies. I'll go over stuff for the live action ones that they had here or in the last decade, and like several other ones that they've done over the years, that other companies have done over the years. Based around different concepts of like Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass and all that fun stuff that they do. Because there's so many different variations of what you can do with Alice in Wonderland with those characters that you're given. The Queen of Hearts, the Cheshire Cat, the White Rabbit, all that fun stuff that you can do with it. Speaking of things in the books, we of course are joined by a few things today. I brought my flowers back from the Fantasia video. I've brought in a couple of butterflies because the caterpillar turns into a butterfly, and there's also bread and butterflies in the movie, and I love the bread and butterflies. We have my little white rabbit as the White Rabbit. We have my Purloin as the Cheshire Cat, simply because of the fact that it's purple and the Cheshire Cat is purple. And then, of course, we have my Alice in Wonderland book, based off of the the movie, of course. I apologize if you hear any loud banging in the background. We have neighbors moving in right next door, and you'll probably hear the trailer a few times throughout the time that we're here. And I've broken out my I'm Not Like the Otters shirt, because Alice is very much not like the otters. I'll put a better picture of the shirt here, along with a link of where you can get it if you want one. A lot of my shirts come from, various just, daily t-shirt websites or whatever, and this is one of them. Some of them I've had long enough I don't remember where I got them from specifically, but if I remember where I get them from, I will put the link at the bottom of the page. Because I don't know, if you like the shirt, you like the shirt. Maybe you'll want to get one your own. I don't know. That's up to you. So we've got those. And so the concept of Alice in Wonderland had been around at the studio for quite a while. And then eventually, after Cinderella, they tried to find different storylines they wanted to do for Alice in Wonderland, because, the stories kind of jump all over the place with, like, well, she goes in here and then she has this adventure, and then she goes here and then she has this adventure, and then it's this and this and this and this and this, and how are we going to make that all fit together? Eventually, it's just to the point where it's just like, okay, we're going to do this, just going to kind of be jumbled for what happens when. Kind of what happens. And Alice in Wonderland is rather jumbled in regards to that. So that's kind of how, Alice in Wonderland came to Disney Studio. Had been around since Walt was like 21 years old, and, working at Laugh-O-Gram Studio in Kansas City. Eventually, worked its way into the Alice in Wonderland movie that we have today, for the 1951 version. And, the story of Alice in Wonderland itself in the movie is, of course, Alice is a girl who very much doesn't like the concept of, well, I don't want to study. I don't want to read boring books. I want everything to be nonsense. Nothing would make sense. And, everyone, and like her sister just kind of berates her on that, of like, no, not all books are going to have pictures in them. Some very good books don't, because that's what Alice wants. The world is supposed to make sense, not be nothing but nonsense. And of course, that's where Alice's idea of, everything would be nonsense. Nothing would be what it is, and everything would be what it's not, type thing. And, so she goes off into like her little daydreaming type state. And then she sees this white rabbit with a waistcoat and a pocket watch. Well, technically her cat sees the rabbit and then points it out to her, and then they chase the rabbit into the rabbit hole. And then Alice goes down the rabbit hole. I do admit I love the sequence when she's falling and falling and falling. Like, all this stuff's going up, the other way, or like the other stuff is stationary, but she keeps falling. The mirrors, the paintings, the lamps, the rocking chairs, all that stuff that just keeps going past her. And I just love that sequence. And then she lands, and she, interacts with the doorknob and does the whole drink me, eat me, find the key, gets giant, gets tiny, then gets giant, and, cries so much that everything floods, and then she gets knocked through the door, through the keyhole, which is just funny. Ends up in like this ocean type thing, and seeing this weird dodo, who's, sailing around, and then has this weird, race thing going on with a whole bunch of like fish and lobsters and birds running around it. Thing about Alice in Wonderland, there's actually more songs throughout Alice in Wonderland, I believe, than in most of the other Disney movies, simply because like there's so many different like just little songs that they do. Alice singing, the rabbit singing, I'm late for a very important date. So many different things like that, just all these different interactions where it's just like, they just, everybody has like these little songs that they sing. So there's lots of little songs throughout the movie. Kind of the more major one is, of course, Alice singing at the beginning. And then kind of goes through that a little bit more. There's not, kind of the unbirthday song, I guess, when we get to the Mad Hatter. And, so we work through a lot of that. And then she, gets away from the weird dodo and the fish having a race. Because, yes. it's Wonderland, of course. Nothing makes sense. And she ends up, wandering off. She's still trying to find the White Rabbit. And then that's when she interacts with Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Who, again, not particularly something I'm super interested in. Actually, one second. I think I messed up a little bit. Yeah, she interacts with Tweedledee and Tweedledum. That's correct. In this forest. And I find Tweedledee and Tweedledum very annoying. They're not necessarily supposed to be, super interesting characters. But they do the recitation of the walrus and the carpenter where it's, teaching, where the walrus is super lazy and then they trick these oysters and then they eat the oysters. Well, the walrus eats all the oysters and then he gets chased off by the carpenter because the walrus is lazy and didn't share anything with the carpenter. So there's a lot of that. That sequence in and of itself is just like, okay. It's just weird. Then she wanders off again. She escapes Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and then she ends up at the rabbit's house, where she ends up eating something else that makes her grow extremely large to the point where she's stuck in the house itself. And it makes her grow extremely large, and the rabbit freaks out, of course, and then the dodo comes along, because of course the dodo comes along. And she, the dodo comes along and they're like, well, we'll smoke her out of the house. And then that results in, of course, the house nearly being set on fire, even though the rabbit doesn't want it to be set on fire, of course. The dodo is a dodo. Alice gets shrunk back down to her normal size, I think. No, she gets shrunk down quite a bit smaller at this point. And then she ends up wandering into the woods. Point of note, if you're wandering around in a weird world, probably shouldn't just start drinking anything that says eat me or drink me. I would just be like, okay, what is it going to do if I eat it? What is it going to do if I drink it? If I drink it, am I going to get poisoned? Am I going to get bigger? Am I going to get smaller? Am I going to get turned into some kind of weird animal? Alice is very gullible at the beginning. Drink me, eat me, bigger, smaller, gigantic, blah, 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 blah. Because reasons. Lost in the woods, and then she ends up, she's 3 inches tall, and then she ends up, wandering through the woods for a while. She interacts with a caterpillar, which is where the butterflies, of course, come from, who, is smoking, I don't know exactly what that thing is called. I don't remember if it's I think it's a hookah. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I am sorry for anyone that actually knows what the thing is that the caterpillar is smoking, but he's smoking something. And of course, we get to hold the who are you whole sequence of the caterpillar being actually rather rude to Alice because he's not letting her talk at all and keeps blowing smoke in her face. So, Alice wanders off after she gets, warned about being rude, and, the caterpillar turns into a butterfly and, goes off after he gives her, advice about, 1/2 of the mushroom will make you get big, 1/2 of the mushroom will make you get small. So, but doesn't tell her which one, so that results in her having to deal with all of that and get bigger or smaller, dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff. I literally just watched the movie and it's just like everything doesn't make sense. So it's just like, okay, are the flowers next, or is it the rabbit and the Mad Hatter and all this other stuff? I'm trying to remember what happens with that. No, okay, so before she gets to the caterpillar, she interacts with all these flowers. Okay. Again, I'm getting my story mixed up. It's Alice in Wonderland. A lot of them can happen in whatever order you want. So I apologize if I got that. I apologize for getting that wrong, even though I literally just watched the movie because the movie doesn't have any real order to it. So sorry. Then we get, then we have, before she interacts with the caterpillar, she interacts with all these different flowers. And I love all the puns in this place. There's the rocking horsefly, bread and butter flies, which I think are adorable. I love the bread and butter flies. I wanted to figure out a way to do that, but I don't think just having like a plate of toast with butter on it sitting over here is going to be the best way of doing that. So I just went with like regular butterflies. Maybe I might make a bread and butterfly someday, but not at the moment. You know, the rocking horse flies, the bread and butterflies, you know, all these other stuff, all these flower puns that they do, that I just love. And then of course the flowers think that Alice is a weed, and then they chase her off. And then that leads her to interacting with the caterpillar, who then turns into a butterfly after he tells her about the, you know, the mushrooms will make you big or small or whatever. And then we enter the tea party sequence after she meets the Cheshire Cat. Again, the same guy that voices the Cheshire Cat is the same guy that voices Caw in Jungle Book and Winnie the Pooh, which, again, I just find that so funny. For the Cheshire Cat. And nowadays, even the same guy that voices him, because the original actor, unfortunately, has, of course, passed away. But the current actor that voices them is, you know, still voices all of them, because they're all within that same range of, you know, voice. And so she interacts with the Cheshire Cat, and he points her in the direction of the rabbits, or of the Mad Hatter's tea party. Of course, as she's going along, she's wandering through this weird forest that has all these weird signs that don't go anywhere. They don't mean anything. They point this way and that way and that way and this way and this way and this way and up and down and left and right and this way and that way and back the way you came. It's just funny. It's like not a forest you want to be in. I wonder how a GPSS would work in that forest. Turn left at the don't turn here sign. Now turn right. Now take 3 steps back. Now turn around. Now walk in a circle 3 times. Now move forward. You know, so we get a lot of that. Yeah. She ends up at the Mad Hatter's tea party. Okay, you know, directed to the March Hares. You know, Mad as March Hare's house. Yeah, that's where the Cheshire Cat sends her after confusing her and speaking in riddles, of course. You know, props to the whole, you know, concept of the people who wrote this who are like, okay, well, how many different weird riddles can we fit into this? And how many different weird riddles can we make up for this? So, you know, props to them for that. We enter the Mad as a March Hare and the Mad Hatter. One moment while I slip into my Mad Hatter hat. Yeah, that's not going to work. That's better. Okay. Mad as a Mad Hatter. Trivia on the guy that voices the Mad Hatter. His name is Ed Wynn, and if you've seen Mary Poppins, he is, of course, the guy that's stuck on his ceiling from laughing too much. The way that they actually filmed a lot of Alice in Wonderland was a lot of the whole, you know, they do the reference footage, of course. And what happened in the reference footage is they had Ed Wynn come in to play the Mad Hatter for the reference footage. They had the girl that played Alice, that voiced Alice, come in and, of course, play Alice, and they dressed her up like Alice, and Ed Wynn was dressed up like the Mad Hatter. And then they had, you know, like this whole little tea set up, of course, it was like plastic tea set and everything. And they just let him go to town. And a lot of the stuff that he came up with, you know, like dipping the, you know, the saucer into the tea and then eating it and like moving on so many times, and just, you know, there's no rhyme or reason to the tea party. There's the unbirthday, there's the March Hare, there's the dormouse that doesn't really do anything except freaks out anytime you hear says the word cat. And, you know, so we get a lot of that, but Edwin's lines that they had recorded for it were so funny that when they had him come back in to, you know, record the lines clean for them to be able to use better for the audio, what he had done in the original sequence when they were filming it for the reference footage was even funnier than what he was saying. for the re-record. So they had to use a lot of the stuff from the reference footage for the audio for what they wanted to do for him, for how funny the Mad Hatter is. We'll get to a little more Mad Hatter trivia later when we hit some of the live action stuff. But so he does the whole sequence with the unbirthday, and then the Alice having to keep moving around the table and not actually getting to eat anything or drink anything. As she deals with the March Hare and the Mad Hatter and the Dormouse. And then eventually she just gets fed up and leaves. Not that I blame her. Gets fed up and leaves. And then she interacts with a bunch of, then she kind of just roams around the forest some more and gets very sad. And, I give myself very good advice, but I very seldom ever follow it. And she gets very sad. And, of course, we have, all these, the little animals and everything that she kept seeing throughout the time that she was there. All these strange animals and everything that some of them are puns on things. Other ones are just like, what are these? And she keeps trying to follow the white rabbit. And I would have been the person in this world where it's just like, can I go home? Because I don't know what's going on here. And in all honesty, I don't know how well I'd, last in Wonderland. I probably wouldn't be the person going, eating and drinking all the things that say eat me and drink me. Probably wouldn't be doing that. But, I'm possibly a bit more sensible than Alice. She says as she has a, hat on her head and stuffed animals and, is technically talking to a camera and kind of talking to herself and hoping that when the video goes up that people will watch it. So, I guess we're all a little bit, cuckoo in our own ways. Just depends on, how you manifest that. So yeah, Alice, wanders around the forest, gets very sad. And then the Cheshire Cat shows up again and shows her how to get to the next area. And he sends her into, the Queen of Hearts area. That she could possibly help her. And sends her into that area where she sees a bunch of these, playing card soldiers painting the white roses red. Painting the roses, since the queen prefers red and will behead them if the roses aren't red. So there's a lot of, Alice decides to help them. And then the queen shows up and, gets very, very angry about the fact of, oh, you're painting the roses red. Why are the roses white? Aren't they red anyway? Get the Queen of Hearts and her tiny little King of Hearts, who's adorable. And of course the White Rabbit is there because he appears to work for her, is what he appears to be. What he appears to do is he works for the Queen. Or drives her insane. I guess either one works. And we get a lot of interaction with Alice and the Queen after she, orders to have the, two of the, the cards that were, painting the roses, orders to have several of them beheaded. Alice ends up, the Queen inspects Alice, and Alice ends up having to play croquet with the Queen, where the croquet balls are hedgehogs and the mallets are flamingos. And of course, the Queen has to win or she will get extremely angry. My answer to this is, she doesn't have any power if you don't give her power, but okay, we'll let that go, I guess. And we get a whole lot of, Alice dealing with the Queen, and then, Alice does something that makes the Queen angry because the Cheshire Cat keeps showing up and taunting Alice. And then, of course, that results in Alice having to go on trial. And we get the whole funny bit of, bring in these different witnesses, bring in these different witnesses. The Mad Hatter gets brought in, the March Hare gets brought in. And of course, you do the whole, it's your unbirthday too, dear. All that fun stuff of having to deal with the unbirthday sequence again, which is just funny. I think my favorite interaction that happens during the trial beyond Alice scolding the queen, which is funny, is when the queen has to deal with the dormouse, because they bring the dormouse up to be interrogated or questioned so he can be a witness, and he's inside the teapot that they keep putting him in, because he wants to, because everybody wants to drink out of a teapot that has a mouse in it. The dormouse seems very drunk and tired, and they put the dormouse in front of the queen and inside the teapot, and there's she tries shouting at, and then they're like, and then she like calms down a tiny little bit, and then she's like very polite to the dormouse inside the teapot. It's just like, she even like whispers for the amount of time that's going on, which I just find funny. It's like she's like shouting and screaming a fair amount of time, but then like with the dormouse, she's like very quiet, and that's adorable. And then Alice ends up, because they're gonna get ready to behead her, and Alice, takes a bite of whatever piece of mushroom she had that was going to make her giant. And she, like, scolds the queen. And then as she's scolding the queen, she gets smaller and smaller, which makes, of course, the queen not be afraid of her anymore. And then, Alice ends up having to run away and escape. And ends up, running and running and running. And we get the whole kind of weird sequence of her being chased around the different areas by the queen, by the cards. The Mad Hatter and such are there too. They're chasing her around, and eventually she gets back to the doorknob, and she's like trying to get the doorknob to open, and that he's still locked, but that she's already on the other side. And Alex looks through the keyhole, and she sees herself sleeping by a tree with her cat. And of course there is a slight backtrack, but there is a moment during the trial when Alice is just sitting there like, I know that's what I mean, but it's just Alice going, ugh, because like all the evidence they have mounting against her is nothing. And so she's like yelling through the keyhole, trying to wake herself up as the mob chasing her draws closer and closer. And she finally wakes up on the other side, and her sister just calls her crazy after she starts telling her about her dream. And Alice, even made a remark at one point she's like, when I get out of here, I must write a book about this place. So, implying that she then writes a book about her adventures in Wonderland. So we get a lot of that. We get the different songs throughout the movie, of course, the Very Merry on Birthday, and, different recitations that kind of come out of it and stuff like that. And, the movie itself isn't really long, not a very long movie by any means, and there weren't any like animated sequels to it, so there's not much for me to talk about there. We do have a little bit in the House of Mouse. There are bits in the House of Mouse where they show up. The Queen shows up at various points in time, the Mad Hatter, the Mouse, or the White Rabbit, the March Hare, usually alongside the Mad Hatter. Alice shows up every now and then. Lots of different, lots of different interactions with, them having to deal with, Alice in Wonderland characters. Alice keeps looking for the White Rabbit and everything, so there's a lot of that. Nothing too major, just different funny bits that have, different, Alice are having to interact with like Daisy or Minnie or stuff like that, or like the Mad Hatter does different, funny musical things every now and then. So there's lots of funny stuff that they do with that. The Queen of Hearts shows up every now and then. Nothing too much besides that. When we get into Kingdom Hearts, this video is not going to be nearly as long as the Cinderella videos, thankfully. And then we get into Kingdom Hearts territory. Alice appears in the first Kingdom Hearts game, where Sora, Donald, and Goofy land in Wonderland at one point. So, they do the whole drink me, shrink me, get in, blah, 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 blah. Have to run around Wonderland, a whole bunch of different places. Forest area, the rabbit's house, or the Bad Hatter's house, or the March Hare's house, or whatever it is. The courtyard area where the queen is, because it's the Heartless have shown up there, and someone's like, and they're accusing Alice of either stealing the queen's heart or trying to steal the queen's heart. And so it's a sham trial, and you have to go around and you have to find all this evidence against them, and you have to interact with the Cheshire Cat. You don't interact with the March Hare or the Mad Hatter at all. They're like trapped in a painting type thing. But you still go to like their tea party table, and you kind of like sit in the different chairs, and the chairs give you different things depending on stuff. And I do like what they do with Kingdom Hearts, where different worlds in Kingdom Hearts, sometimes there's a lot of the same types of Heartless in different areas, but then there's like also some areas that have very specific Heartless that are specific for that area. Like Alice in Wonderland has a lot of different like flower-based Heartless, because there's lots of flowers in Wonderland, obviously, at various points in time. But you interact with the queen, and she's trying to, wants to, behead Alice. And Sora and Donald and Goofy are supposed to try to protect Alice, and that doesn't unfortunately go very well. There's, they gather all this evidence, and then of course the queen, doesn't pay any attention to the evidence. And then, Alice is one of the princesses of hearts, so then she goes missing. Pops up again she pops up again at the end of the game. You're dealing with the Princesses of Heart in Maleficent's castle. You have to free Alice there along with the other princesses. Alice is in, Chain of Memories and Coded and stuff like that, where she's just like, side stuff that has, you have to redo your memories in the games and stuff like that, because side games and money. And then we get into, there was a 1991 to 2005 TV series that was just called Adventures in Wonderland, which is Alice, and, based off of, Through the Looking Glass and that and stuff, where Alice, keeps going in and out of, in and out of Wonderland and seeing her friends and everything like that and solving problems there. And then that solves problems in the real world, so it was that type of a thing. And then we get into the 2010 and 2016 live action Alice in Wonderland movies. I've seen the 2010 one. I have not seen the 2016 one, so I don't really know that much about it. I know that a fair amount of the characters, Johnny Depp played the Mad Hatter. I cannot pronounce the name of the lady that played Alice, but I do think she did a rather good job. Helena Bonham Carter is the Red Queen. Anne Hathaway is the White Queen. Matt Lucas is Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Michael Sheen is, the White Rabbit. Alan Rickman was the Butterfly / Caterpillar, Absalom. Stephen Fry played the Cheshire Cat, who of course gave us this version of the Cheshire Cat. There's, a few other ones that pop up, the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, the Dormouse, not too much. As I said, I haven't really seen them, I know in the first movie that Alice ends up going into Wonderland, and they keep claiming that they know her, which is either in the second movie we find there's a little bit of a difference there, but in the first one we're thinking, it's still the same Alice that went there in the first, in the 1951 version, and then she just doesn't remember it, and then she slowly has to remember it and interact with the characters and everything, and such. Again, I've only seen the movie once. Wasn't super impressed with it. If you like the movie, that's perfectly fine. It's just not anything that I really cared for. And I didn't, I haven't seen this Through the Looking Glass, the 2016 one. Again, I may end up seeing it at some point. Not something that's at the top of my list to watch. If you like it, again, perfectly fine. Not going to knock your movie watching. And if all you ever pay attention to the Disney movies is what I talk about here, then that's fine too. I would encourage you to go and watch the movie, since, I can't do them justice with how I talk about them, but I still love them and I still like talking about them. So if you want to go watch, Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass and all that stuff, by all means, go and do it. Either pause the video and go and watch it, or finish the video and then go and watch it. That's up to you. So there's a lot of that. Alice, rather well-to-do family, is supposed to get married, doesn't want to get married, ends up back in Wonderland, has to deal with the Wicked Queen and all this other stuff. And, not the Wicked Queen, has to deal with the Queen of Hearts. Wicked Queen and Queen of Hearts we'll get to in a minute when I get to Once Upon a Time. But you deal with the Queen of Hearts again, who's the Red Queen, who's the Helena Bonham Carter character. Then you deal with the White Queen. And you deal with a whole bunch of that stuff. So, there's not too much. I don't, she ends up eventually, having to fight the Jabberwocky. I'm like, I don't remember there being a Jabberwocky in the original one, but I could have just missed it. I literally watched it yesterday and I don't remember there being a Jabberwocky in it. But, so she has to fight the Jabberwocky because she's a knight. That's what she becomes to save Wonderland. So yeah, I don't really know too much beyond that. I don't really know anything about the second one. I know at the end of it, I don't think she ends up getting married in the end of the second one, unless I'm completely wrong and she ends up getting married. I know the second one involves a lot of time travel and having to save the Mad Hatter, and they bring back all the characters and add in new ones, including like Sacha Baron Cohen. So again, I don't really know that much about it, for the second one. Then we get into the Once Upon a Time stuff, where, I watched a little bit of Alice in Wonderland for the Once Upon a Time in Wonderland stuff. I unfortunately, because it kept getting moved around for, I think, time frames for when it was on, I did not get the chance to watch all of it. I am planning at some point on going back and rewatching Once Upon a Time, which may end up resulting in me talking about a few different things from Once Upon a Time. I know it's several years later, considering that the series is already done and finished, but hey, I can still talk about it if I want. I'm talking about him now. From what I understand is, Alice goes to Wonderland at one point when she's a kid, and then she goes to Wonderland again when she gets older. And Wonderland has not gone well. Things have not gone well in Wonderland. She ends up making friends. She had made friends with the Knave of Hearts. Once long ago, I got your heart, got you back your heart, and now you need to help me get back mine. Alice had her heart stolen, I'm assuming, by the Queen of Hearts. We'll get to the Queen of Hearts in a minute. If you know Once Upon a Time, we'll get to the Queen of Hearts. When she does go back, she interacts with this version of the White Rabbit, who I believe his name is Peter. Peter Rabbit. And then she interacts with this version of the Cheshire Cat, who is a rather creepy version of the Cheshire Cat. He supposedly has kind of gone rather feral and wild because of what's been going on in Wonderland. So he's not exactly all there. I know that at various points Alice has fallen in love with the boy. I do not remember his name off the top of my head. But she ends up falling in love with a boy, and she has to deal with Jafar, Cyrus. Cyrus is the name of the boy that she is in love with, and I do believe I mispronounced. I think it's either Peter or Percy. That's the rabbit. It's Percy. That's the rabbit. It's the rabbit's name. So it's not Peter Rabbit. It's Percy Rabbit. No, Percy the White Rabbit. I'll get to the Mad Hatter and the Queen of Hearts in a second. But Alice has to deal with Jafar and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I know at the end of the series, she ends up marrying Cyrus. They end up getting married and they have a family of their own. I do not remember because again, I have not seen Wonderland all the way through. I only saw like a little bit of it from Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. Because of scheduling and everything, and I did not get the chance to watch it very well. I don't know if she ends up being part of the curse that gets people sent back and forth at various points in time, or if just Wonderland kind of ends up being on its own at some point. I don't remember. But then we get into the storybook stuff, the actual Once Upon a Time series stuff. And the first main thing that we're introduced to from Alice in Wonderland is the Mad Hatter. We are introduced to him, Mad Hatter, when Regina, as the Wicked Queen, needs to go to Wonderland to speak to the Queen of Hearts. And she basically tells the Mad Hatter that, oh, if you take me to the Queen of Hearts, to Wonderland, then I will, make it that your daughter lacks for nothing. That she will have everything that she desires. A nice home, nice clothes, food, all that stuff. Because the Mad Hatter is rather poor and he doesn't have the money to be able to take care of his daughter as much as he would like, because he loves his daughter. And Regina likes to play off on that. And I'm actually going to switch out this for a little crown. I wish I had a red one, but I just have this black one. I'll go with that. I need to get bunny ears. I'm of the moon bunnies, and I don't have any bunny ears. I'm going to get bunny ears. Easter may result in me getting a couple of different pairs of bunny ears. We'll see. So Regina uses the Mad Hatter to take her to Wonderland, where she has to deal with Cora, Queen of Hearts, which is where it's revealed that her mother is the Queen of Hearts. And her mother is a very manipulative force in Regina's life. For Cora herself, we learn later on that she was the miller's daughter. She made a deal with her Uncle Stiltskin after a whole bunch of other things. She, made certain deals. She almost married King Leopold. Instead of it being Snow White's mother, she almost married Leopold. But that didn't happen because of other interferences. She seemed to have developed a close relationship with Rumpelstiltskin. She had two daughters. One, who is Zelena, the Wicked Witch of the West, who she gave up, and then Zelena ended up in Oz. And Zelena has her own problems. And then she married a very high-born, I don't remember if her husband was a prince or if he was just a very high-born lord. So, that's who Cora married, and that's where she had Regina with, and Regina adored her father, and had lots of issues with her mother, surprisingly enough. One thing that we find out about Cora is that she took out her own heart, so that way she would get less sentimentally attached to anything, and then she put her heart in like its own safe place where no one can find it. And so she's a Queen of Hearts, and Regina takes her father back, and the Mad Hatter ends up getting left in Wonderland because of certain, the same amount that goes in has to come out. So they go in with two. Regina leaves the Mad Hatter there and then takes her father with her. So then the Mad Hatter's trapped in Wonderland. I do believe Regina does at least keep her part of the bargain that his daughter will be well taken care of. But the Mad Hatter kind of goes crazy, trying to find a way back as he wants to get back to his daughter. And, the Wicked, the Queen of Hearts keeps making him try to make hats so she can get back. I'm assuming eventually at some point something works, because at some point she does go back to the regular realm, to the main realm where things come from. Regina's actually the one that banished her mother to that banished her mother to Wonderland at some point. Cora was very manipulative throughout the series, throughout the second and third and maybe into the fourth series, and then they interact with her again when they go to hell, and she interacts with her two daughters, and finally get to the point where she can reconcile with her two daughters and have them reconcile with each other and actually get to be sisters like they should have been. And, Cora gets reunited with her husband Henry, Henry Mills. And, Cora and her husband are reunited. And there's noise in the hallway. One moment. Okay, we'll see what happens with the noise. But, so a little bit for the Mad Hatter. Well, Cora first. Cora ends up dying, of course, at one point because certain manipulations and stuff like that, and way too much to go into. But she helps Zelena and Regina reconcile, and Zelena and Regina are able to then become actual sisters. Side note, the lady that they have play the young version of Cora whenever we get those flashbacks is Rose McGowan from Charmed, is what I recognize her from, and I love that she's the one that played young Cora. She did a great job. The lady that they had played Cora herself, I think, did a great job. I think most of the casting that they did on Once Upon a Time was great casting for all those characters, considering that you're trying to cast, iconic Disney characters, so you got to try to do as best you can with that, and then we end up getting involved with the Mad Hatter again with Once Upon a Time, with the regular Once Upon a Time. The Mad Hatter is played by Sebastian Stan, who you would know as Bucky or the Winter Soldier from Marvel movies, if you've watched those. And I swear, the first time I watched one of the episode where they introduce him as the Mad Hatter, he interacts with Emma a lot in Storybrooke, is he remembers, but part of, I guess, a punishment type thing or whatever, he remembers being in Wonderland and being in the Enchanted Forest, but he doesn't have his daughter with him. His daughter is with this other family, and she is well taken care of, just like Regina promised, but he does not get to be with her. He has to watch her from the outside, and she doesn't remember him. So he's trapped in his own hell type of thing for that. And so, yeah, Sebastian Stan plays Mad Hatter. And yeah, the first time that I saw that episode, I'm like, he looks familiar. Why does he look familiar? So I'm looking at him, I'm like, oh, he's Bucky. And I do not remember exactly when where in regards to, like, Once Upon a Time I watched, like, the Marvel movies in regards to that, where I started with that. But so I know that I recognized him, and I was like, oh, he played Bucky in Captain America. And then I realized, and then I found out, oh, well, he's going to be the Winter Soldier in Winter Soldier. And he's going to be a continuation thing. And I kind of knew who the Winter Soldier was a little bit. So I'm just like, oh, okay. And then, of course, unfortunately, well, they kind of tie up Jefferson's, Mad Hatter's cursed persona is called Jefferson, which is a roundabout way of a reference to, I want to say, a Jefferson Airplane song, I think. I don't remember 100%, but there's like a reference in there, and a lot of stuff happens. And he's the Mad Hatter, and he remembers, and he tries to get Emma to help him so he can get back to his daughter. He kind of traps Emma at some point. We don't get too much with him. He's kind of the, Regina ends up bringing him in to help her, like, at the end of the first season, because she needs to get a hold of, like, one of her poison apples, so she can use that to try to poison Emma. So then Emma will go into a coma, and then she can keep her happily ever after, while everyone else is nothing. And she makes the deal with him of, if you do this for me, then I'll get you your daughter back, type thing. And he decides to, help her. he's kind of desperate at this point in time because he spent however amount of time that they've been in, the cursed world without magic. He spent however amount of that time watching his daughter. And because people in Storybrooke don't age during the point in time when the curse is in place, Henry's the only one that really seems to age. No new babies are really born. No new people come in. No kids grow up, which, the cursed people don't recognize this, but Henry is kind of from an outside source. So he's like, oh, well, something's wrong here because my classmates don't ever change. So I move on, but they don't, type thing. Or however that ended up working for like Once Upon a Time. For like all of like the kids that were in Storybrooke, because they don't seem to age. Because the adults don't seem to age, so the kids don't seem to age either. Until Emma breaks the first curse. And then people can start aging again. If they're outside the curse, then they seem to age. But when they're inside the curse bubble, they don't age. For the original part. And he tries to get Emma to help him, and then Regina ends up using him to try to get a hold of one of her poison apples from the enchanted forest for her to use against Emma. And then, different things happen. And then when Emma breaks the curse the second or third time or whatever, where the curse gets broken the second or third time or whatever, when everybody is getting reunited with all of their loved ones, his daughter finally remembers him, of course, because the curse is broken. So she remembers she remembers her father, and she, starts putting up, missing person posters because they're, all people are trying to find each other in Storybrooke. So there's, well, I'm looking for this person. I'm looking for this person. Do you know where this person is? And she puts up all these posters for her dad, and Jefferson kind of stands off to the side because he doesn't want to ruin what she has. And Emma goes after him and basically says, no, you need to come and see your daughter. She's missing you. She wants to see you again. And he finally does get reunited with his daughter. And he loves that. And he does get reunited with his daughter, and her name is Grace. And they go off to his house. They go off to the house that he's been trapped in, and he finally gets to be with his daughter again. And I love that. Side note for the Bucky thing. I have two shirts that are the two Avengers, Infinity War and Avengers Endgame movie posters done with Disney characters. I'm sure you've seen these over the internet. Lots of different variations of this shirt have come out. Of these two shirts have come out. And I have both, that are the Disney characters. And I believe it's the Infinity War one, we see, and like all the different characters are like, okay, well, I understand that one and that one and that one and that one and that one. And then I'm like looking over the shirt, and I look at who they have for Bucky, and it's the Mad Hatter, which just makes me laugh because I'm sitting there going, okay, I really hope that this is the person who did this shirt, who drew this shirt. I'm really hoping that the person who did this is a Once Upon a Time fan and knows what they did. Because guy that plays Bucky in Once Upon a Time, or plays Bucky in Captain America, Winter Soldier, is the same guy that played, the Mad Hatter / Jefferson in Once Upon a Time. And they have the Mad Hatter as the Winter Soldier. And I really freaking hope that was on purpose. And if it is, whoever you are that made that shirt, I give you 2 thumbs up. And if that was on accident, then that was a great accident. Because it's just like, it still works. I had to explain that to a coworker because thankfully they had at least seen Marvel and Once Upon a Time, and I could give them a reference for that. And then they kind of got it, but it was still like, yeah. I will someday do like a different connection between like Marvel and Once Upon a Time, or Marvel and Disney in and of itself, and do like these weird track things, shit like this and this and this and this and this. And I just think it's funny because there's a couple of other people that are really like, well, they were in Marvel, but then they were also in Once Upon a Time, and then they were in this, and then they were in that. And I will do that at some point, but not yet. And then moving back into the Once Upon a Time, then we get the end of the Once Upon a Time. We get the 7th season, which is where we deal with grown-up Henry, and having to, deal with his version of blah 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 blah, his version of a curse. And we get the Alice in Wonderland character that we get there. Her name in the curse world is Tilly is her name, and she is actually the daughter of Mother Gothel from Rapunzel, and a weird version of Hook from Peter Pan, from the Captain Hook. Not the same one that Emma marries, but like a weird alternate version of him. And he was tricked by Mother Gothel, blah 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 blah, had a child with her. He still cared and raised and loved the child, and then certain things, his heart gets poisoned because if he gets too near her, then it will kill him. And he, eventually when they get all their memories back after the curse is broken for them in Hyperion Heights, he, has to deal, he ends up almost dying again, but he still wants to save her because he still loves his daughter. And via Rumple, Weaver, Mr. Gold, whatever you want to refer to him as, interfering because Tilly at one point ends up being friends with Rumple when they were in like the original like Enchanted Forest area. She ended up being friends with him at one point, and so he cares for her quite a bit. And as Rumple is getting kind of cursed twice, and I never 100% understand if in the second time that he's cursed in Hyperion Heights, if he actually remembers that he was Rumpelstiltskin, or if he just thinks that he's just this detective character that he plays named Weaver. Admittedly, I like Weaver a bit more than I like Mr. Gold, but we learn more about Mr. Gold through the course of the 6 seasons that we get him in Storybrooke over the one season that we get Weaver. And of course, by this point in the series, we know that Rumple has become a hero, and Rumple proves himself a hero in this when he sacrifices his own heart by taking his own heart out and taking out Hook's heart and then swapping them so that Hook has a heart that's not poisoned, and then Rumple takes the poisoned heart so that he will die and then he can go and be with Belle, and he dies a hero's death. That's something I'll be going over a little bit more when I get to the Pinocchio video, which should be the next one, since Pinocchio is the next movie. But we get a lot of... There's a lot to unpack with Pinocchio when I get to that, but that's not yet. We get a lot with Tilly in Hyperion Heights. She works with Detective Weaver as kind of like an informant type thing, and so, working with... ends up, doing all of that and everything. And what ends up happening is she ends up interacting with Zelena and Robin Hood's daughter. Again, I'll get to that when I get to the Robin Hood movie video. She interacts with Robin, Zelena and Robin's daughter. Don't ask. That'll be a little while down the road when I get to Robin Hood. I don't remember when that is, but that'll be a little ways down the road. And they end up falling in love. So Tilly, or Alice, and Robin fall in love. And they do eventually get married at one point. Tilly is kind of the one that helps a little bit with like breaking the curse that's on them in Hyperion Heights. And she kind of keeps having like these weird flashbacks because she kind of remembers some things of the original world where they were from, but they keep giving her medication and stuff like that kind of for her own good. Weaver keeps kind of giving her medication because it's either he doesn't want her to remember yet, or he doesn't remember being Rumple. Again, it's a little bit of a what's going on here type thing. Again, I don't 100% remember. I only watched Once Upon a Time through once. I am going to end up doing it again. I want to find it. It's not on Disney Plus, unfortunately, but I have to try to find it somewhere else where I can watch it through again. But we're going to get a lot more Bucky in the Winter Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so that'll be fun. I highly doubt they're going to do a Once Upon a Time reference, but I would find it hilarious if they did. But there's a whole lot of, Alice and Hook and Mother Gothel and Cinderella and just all this other stuff, and I just love what they did with, how they twist the Alice in Wonderland stuff in Once Upon a Time. And, they make Once Upon a Time certain things. They make certain things darker. They make certain things happier. They interweave these stories. And I've said that multiple times with Once Upon a Time stuff in these movies, in these videos. And I agree with it. You twist certain things, make things better, twist certain things to make them darker. And I find that great. And eventually, I may end up doing a short series on Once Upon a Time at some point, because I can't really talk about Emma that much in these videos, and I want to talk about Emma at some point. Same thing with Henry. So there's, some things that I can talk about because they intertwine with the Disney movies and stuff like that. But then there's other ones that they don't. So I can't go into that character that much. But at some point I want to do a video about Emma Swan at least. Or just that whole family tree dynamic that they have for Once Upon a Time, which is just a weird thing. So I might do that at some point. That's the end of this video. We're done with this video now for Alice in Wonderland. Just a one video because we got through everything. As opposed to the Cinderella that took 2 videos. Don't know. The Peter Pan one might just take 1 video. It might take 2, or it might be 2 shorter videos. We'll see how I decide to edit it. But this will just be all 1 video, hopefully. So again, I tip my crown to you. I would tip my hat, but I already took it off. I tip my crown to you for whoever stayed through this whole bit of me rambling. So I thank you very much. I thank you I thank you a lot for watching. I hope you liked the video. I hope you liked the channel. I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. But that's the trouble with me. I give myself very good advice, but I very seldom follow it.